swear, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time we will go into our public comments session. And we have Ernestine Hammond.
Good evening. My name is Ernestine Hamlet, and I want to address the Board of Commissioners on a few things. One, when will you put the Confederate monument and the redesigning of the town square back on the agenda? You went out in July, I believe, for a closed session on the matter, and now it's October. Two, what goes through your mind when you say the Pledge of Allegiance? Especially the part that says one nation under God with liberty and justice for all. What goes through your mind and your heart when you say that? Or you just repeat it verbatim? Three, this artwork of the Confederate monument, it does not represent the values of this county, nor does it represent the value of this board, according to the sworn oath that you took when you were elected. So I'm asking you tonight, let's live up to the county motto by preserving the past and embracing the future. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next is Landon Woods.
Good afternoon. My name is Landon Woods. I'm from 4810 Old Highway 86 North, Yanceyville, North Carolina 27379. I'm here to speak on the mandatory vaccines issue. I believe that it is against our Constitution to force a vaccine onto people. It's the progressives that mainly talk about the mandatory vaccines, and the same progressives who say that they learn from the past and talk bad about conservatives being too traditional and living in the past. The same progressives are the ones saying that we need to demand people get a vaccine or they get fired from their jobs. They're not allowed to go into stores, restaurants. Don Lemon with CNN said if people don't get the vaccine, they shouldn't be allowed in entertainment centers, sports arenas, even grocery stores. So now we're telling people either submit to our agenda or you're not even allowed to buy food for your families. And I believe that goes against everything that America stands for. And it's eerily similar to 1938 in Nazi Germany, when people were demanded to wear a star on their side to enter stores, to buy, to sell. It goes against everything that we stand for. And the same progressives will say it's her body, her choice when she wants to kill her unborn child. But if the same woman doesn't want to take a mandatory vaccine, that seems to be a problem. And I think that goes against everything that we stand for as a nation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. This time we declare public comments closed and move into the recognitions. Commissioner Carter.
I'd like to recognize our firefighters and first responders for the job they've done. There's been several accidents lately, more than usual. Had one case over Providence where the guy who died, Mr. Ted Hines, was over in the family.
Commissioner Carter, if you can kind of get up closer to the mic.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? I said I'd like to recognize our firefighters for the job they do. There's been several accidents lately, and one case they had a guy that died over at Providence, 86 Convenience, Mr. Hines filmed it, and the first responders got down there and the EMS, so they will bring it back to life. So I'd like to recognize the first responders and EMS and sheriff's department for the job they're doing.
Thank you. Commissioner Sharp, Commissioner Day, Commissioner Jeffries, Commissioner Hall, Commissioner Dickerson. Tonight I wear my pink shirt. And this month is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I meant to do this earlier and forgot. But I wear it in recognition of all those who are survivors. My wife is one for almost 30 years now. And for all the other residents of Castle County who are survivors and those who are right now battling that breast cancer. And we've lost many because of that, but we do want to recognize those who have been survivors, who are survivors, and those who are battling now. All right, this time we'll have approval of agenda, and I believe Commissioner Hall, you have.
Yes, Mr. I request 3 items to go on the agenda for tonight, and 2 of them are on here. The third one was the redesign of the square. And I'd like to add that redesign of the square and move them all on the action items, not discussion items.
Move all of these
Yes,
mandatory ethics,
yes.
all under action items. Okay. Any issues with that, gentlemen?
Well, I'll say that to move it to an action item would no prior advertising to the community. People that have a vested interest in these issues won't be here before a vote's called for it. So I would say that the redesign of the square especially should be advertised before we put that on the agenda.
And I spoke with Commissioner Hall about that.
Moving the vaccination to the action item, I thought we worked on that about 3 meetings ago and took action on it. That we weren't going to require young employees to take vaccination. It brought up about 3 meetings ago.
That meeting, I was not present. Okay, then you did take action on that.
We did take action on it.
Mr. Chairman, actually, there was no action taken on it. It received a motion, but died to lack of a second.
Anyone else? I would agree with Commissioner Dickerson. I would like to, at least the redesign of the square, give people time to know that we are going to take some type of action. But anybody else have any objection to that going on tonight?
I think you ought to know the total cost of everything, and which we don't. And I think some of the people need to be here.
Commissioner, just a friendly reminder, please turn on your mics and speak into the mic when you're talking.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would go along with the consensus of the board on that.
How about, anybody else want to weigh in on that, so we'll know whether we have a consensus to hold off or go ahead?
Well, I think all along, we've been waiting on the cost before we understand what the action, the appropriate action is on the relocation. So I don't see, unless we're prepared to have that presented to us, I don't see how we can take action. I think the mandatory vaccinations, we don't know what, I believe we're still waiting for the OSHA guidelines or regulations on that, so I don't see how we can take action on that without knowing what comes down on that. I think policy, I don't know what the proposal is there, so I have no opinion on that.
That item on the square, the county manager is supposed to come back force and give us a cost, we hadn't heard what it's gonna cost, move them yet.
Well,
County manager's supposed to come back and give us a report on how much it's gonna cost, I want to make a decision on that.
okay.
Now, I will go back to the vaccination, it wasn't a vote taken that night, but it was a consensus of the board on maintaining the majority vote not to give it back, not to make it mandatory.
In defense of the county manager, I don't think the county manager has received from this board whether we want, as a board, to proceed and have him and staff, because this is gonna take quite a bit of work on their part. And so I would rather have it to be an official action, whether we want him to proceed to get, the cost estimates of not only relocating the monuments that are on the square, but also redesign the cost that it would incur to redesign the square. And he's gonna have some guidelines on that as well.
Where you gonna get all this money to do that? Where you gonna get all this money to do that?
Where am I gonna get all this?
All this money, where are we gonna get all this money to do that? It's not in the budget.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. The board needs to direct him, to give him clear direction on, we want him to proceed to get cost estimates. Or not. That's what I'm saying. So, from what I hear, I assume the consensus of the board is to direct the county manager to do that. To proceed to get cost estimates, relocating the monuments and redesigning the square.
Well, we've been talking about this for over a year, over 2 years, we should have some figures, we can't keep on talking about it, we need to do something.
All right. So the consensus is county manager proceed to get cost estimates of all that. And as quickly as possible.
Mr. Chairman, is the second meeting in November too late?
You can get the cost, that time.
That's fine with me. I think it probably will take you a while to get those estimates in. Is that okay with the board? Second meeting in November? Very well. There's the director.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Wood.
Yes.
The last time we had a discussion on this, part of the issue was new location for the various monuments. I don't know that that's been defined. Because that's gonna figure in the cost. If we move to 250 feet, it's one thing, if we move 2 miles, it's another. Maybe, I don't know.
My understanding was, I thought,
Sounds like to me.
yeah, I thought the board had kind of given consensus that the idea would be to move them to the right side of the courthouse. Now, if you're looking at the courthouse, it would be the left side.
Commissioners,
With my understanding, what we move them, we're gonna need a cost estimate, see how much it costs. Might be too high.
But, yeah, well, I agree, but moving them, we gotta know where you're moving them. For those people to give us an estimate. That would be the cheapest place if they're moved there. And that will give us a base, unless there's some objection to those monuments being moved there. So he can get the estimate. Okay.
Is there an objection to moving them there? I suspect there might be. Is there an objection to using that as a
Base
for
for
location?
estimates.
It's a different question.
Well, that's what I meant.
I know.
Okay. Is that okay? Then we'll use that as our gauge. Thank you. All right, so we're going to not include that on the agenda. We're going to, We still need to make a decision about mandatory vaccinations.
Chairman,
Yes,
the other factor that enters into it is there is a pending state law bar localities from requiring mandatory vaccination, and that was another bit of information we were waiting to see how it played out. We go down this road and the state moves to the bar, then where are we?
can we just tonight leave it as just a discussion question, Mr. Hall? Is that sufficient?
I bring it up because we tend to drag these things on. And every opportunity we get, we'll find an excuse for not acting. And we need to act. Let people know where we stand, good, bad, and different. I'm concerned about what's in the state law. I'm not concerned about what Ocean might do. Because there are people, there are businesses in this country already doing mandatory vaccination. It makes good public health sense. And that's what I want us to deal with, good public health sense.
It's good to leave there, you want to, we'll do the issue. If you want to make a motion on it when we get to that, get a second and we'll vote. It's up to you. I mean, we can.
Well, that'll be one way to, that we can make a decision. Well, too bad. Make a decision.
Excuse me, can you guys talk in the mic so we can hear?
The county across that whole state side, just decide to kick the can down the road and leave the damn stuff. We won't call the flag, we won't take money. Come on, man. Yeah.
We have a time for public comment.
Hand up, you didn't hold it up to the Ku Klux Klan here. I know you ain't gonna do nothing, but the Klan ain't getting money. Y'all ain't gonna do nothing. Kick the can down the road, leave the statue. Let Campbell County know, but having the last one in America,
We
it's
will
gonna be
put
a track.
mandatory vaccinations as a.
And don't do that nigga, don't do the right thing either. Be the last one in the state to do that too.
Sir.
Carry on Campbell County's tradition of being the last. Don't do a damn thing. Y'all do best. Draw a check.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have no objection to moving the vaccinations to the next one, Mr. Holmes to explore that, but I would ask that we have a pretty vigorous discussion and with input from the county attorney. That's all.
All right, so when we get to that, we'll have that discussion. So we'll move mandatory vaccinations to item, which it will end up being item. Actually, it will end up being item number 9, that we'll move the rest of them up. All right, so the agenda will be, let's see, discussion item will be ethics policy. Action items will be opioid, MOA, and mandatory vaccination. So we need a motion to approve that agenda.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Can we put ethics policy under action item? We've already got it. So I'm not talking about anything. Just got to suggest. Okay. If we could put the ethics policy under action items. We've already got an ethics policy. I just have some suggestions.
Okay. Everything will be under action items.
No discussion.
Well, hopefully there will be some discussion in those action items.
No discussion.
Okay, all right, so all those items will be action items, gentlemen. So I need a motion to approve the agenda as revised.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, aye. Aye. All opposed? All right. Approval of consent agenda. Are there any corrections to the regular meeting minutes?
Mr. Chairman, just because we are on a remote meeting notice, if you'll just do roll call voting this evening, that'll keep us in line with the statutory requirement for remote meetings.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, so we have to do roll call then. Commissioner Carter? Commissioner Dickerson? Commissioner Hall? Commissioner Jeffries? Commissioner McVeigh? Commissioner Ostriker? Commissioner Owen, aye. Are there any additions or corrections to the September 20th regular meeting minutes? September 27th, public hearing minutes? October 4th, regular meeting minutes? October 5th, redistricting meeting minutes?
Make motion approved.
Okay, hearing no corrections, they will be as stated. We have a motion to approve. Okay, I'll second it. We'll do roll call voting on this as well. Commissioner Carter? Commissioner Dickinson? Commissioner Hall? Jeffries? McVeigh? Ostriker? Owen? Aye. All right, into action items. Number 7 will be the, let's do the opioid issue first.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, the next step in the process for Castle County local government is to sign on to the settlements, plural, one state, one federal, by January 2nd, 2022. North Carolina stands to receive approximately $750 million through opioid litigation settlements if all 100 counties and all municipalities with a population over 10,000 participate. These funds will be available starting in 2022 to support treatment, recovery, harm reduction, and other life-saving programs and services. North Carolina's share of the settlement funds will be distributed among state and local governments as outlined in a memorandum of agreement, which is in your agenda packet. More than 80 local governments have already joined and signed the memorandum of agreement in North Carolina. It's important to note that signing onto the settlements is separate from signing on to the North Carolina MOA. I'm recommending that the board authorize Castle County to sign on to the North Carolina Memorandum of Agreement at this time. The national settlement agreement will be on an upcoming agenda well before the January 2nd, 2022 deadline.
And I just do want to make note for the commissioners, you know what, the reason we were asked to hold off on this was because there was some discussion about local litigation teams being paid extra money from the board through this money. Well, that's not the case because we signed the agreement with the national firm. All the national litigation teams have signed off on a waiver that if they are receiving the national fund from the national litigation fund, that there would be no local funds. They signed off on that. So, but we signed our agreement with the national firm. So we didn't sign it with the local firm. So that was kind of the holdup. We were afraid we would have to pay money because of that. That is not going to be the case. Correct? Let's make sure we're not.
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so, yes.
You go ahead, Mr.
So how does this impact the suit that we signed off on with the national firm?
How does it impact?
Yeah, what we did.
Impact us?
Yeah, how does it impact Carroll County in terms of dollars?
Well, what this does, it gives the state more leverage, and they will receive that money, and I think it's a bonus in there as well.
Part of the settlement agreements that's made with the distributors allocates money to the national firms for the national firms to be paid. So that's where the money will come from for the national firms.
That money is already accounted for.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about their payment. What my question is, what do we get out of it from signing on with these national firms? Because what you just read to us is that all 100 counties have to sign on to North Carolina. Or if they sign on, you read something like that, maybe I misunderstood.
I'm trying to locate that, and that I probably will not be able to do that.
Okay.
But it does not impact in any way the money that we're going to receive. That's already determined in this package. And to be quite honest, from what I understand is whether we sign or not, every county still gets money out of this. What this does by many counties signing, it just gives better leverage for the state. Is that not correct?
Yes, that's correct. It does give the county, it gives North Carolina an increased chance of recovering more of the opioid settlement.
I guess my concern is, why is this going to the state?
This type of a settlement is not similar from the tobacco lawsuits that you had many, many years ago. I know the state, the counties at that time felt underserved by the settlement from the tobacco litigation. The NCACC stepped in and was a major player in opioid litigation to make sure that individual counties got the amounts, got the majority of the money instead of the state taking the majority of the money.
Right, and we had that discussion when we were deciding to sign on with separate law firms. We talked about how we were treated in the tobacco settlement. And so, what assurances are we getting that we're not going to be treated any different this time?
Well, that's in the memorandum of agreement that, that's in the memorandum of agreement that we're asking for permission to sign off on tonight.
An assurance that we're not going to stick to it.
Yeah, the funding mechanisms for those is laid out in the memorandum.
Yeah, it's already laid out. We know how much we're going to get. And that will not change. The state's already got their cut. The rest of that money, 85%, is what is going to the counties in North Carolina. And the formula they have in this, we can figure out roughly what we're going to get. It's going to be over 18 years.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not sure I understand completely
The question.
the question.
The question is, we talked about the tobacco settlement. We decided to go out with several other counties and hire an attorney. Now, the deal is that maybe, and the money is going to be sent to the state, and they're going to divvy it up. I understand they might have a formula in there, but that formula may not be in our best interest. That's why we went with the national group, the attorneys.
Mr. Chairman, if we could ask our county attorney to talk about a little bit about the multi-district litigation and how that plays into what we're talking about now.
Okay.
Well, First of all, what I'd like to say is Commissioner Hall is recollecting correctly some of the preliminary discussions we had at the outset of this process. He's also probably recalling the difficulty counties had in receiving any, real tangible, substantial benefit from the tobacco litigation, where the state essentially maintains this trust fund and the purse strings, and the trickle down did not come as some would have thought it should to the local level. This MOU is a little different. And it's different because Commissioner Hall is not the only person in county government who remembers how challenging to the local governments the tobacco settlement was. And so this MOU is the product of what they call a 555 committee, which essentially involved county attorneys across the state, county managers across the state, and other local government officials getting in a room over many months, going on a year now, and hammering out this MOU that involves not only the division of funds, but it really puts parameters on how the funds can be used, when they're drawn down, what the money's going to go to, because the counties were sensitive to the fact that they would possibly, if the state controlled all of that, they wouldn't receive the ultimate benefit of the bargain. So that's the sort of a little bit of the background of how we got to the MOU stage, and county governments were at the table during that negotiation. The reason why it's important, I believe that the NCACC would say it's important to move forward with the MOU, and also some of the lawyers involved, is because the defendants are sensitive to the fact that there are these individual lawsuits, right? Like Caswell filed. Caswell filed its own lawsuit as a plaintiff against all of these named defendants, right? So we have an individual lawsuit, just like thousands of other local governments across the country. And so the defendants are saying, well, unless we have some certainty that there's a collective buy-in about how the settlement will work, we're reluctant to settle with any one entity, right? So we want to make sure that the state attorney general, is satisfied, that all these counties and cities are more or less satisfied. And so the idea is that this state of North Carolina and the local governments and cities and towns and counties therein show their solidarity in the negotiations and this settlement by signing on to the MOU, and thus hopefully generating a more favorable settlement overall to North Carolina, because the defendants have some assurance that, at least as to this state, most of the multi-district litigation that the county manager was talking about will end with the resolution. So those are some of the differences to the tobacco settlement, a little bit of the background on how heavily this agreement has been negotiated with folks like you. Other commissioners were at the table too. I'm sorry, when I mentioned the 555, I didn't mention that county commissioners were at the table in that group as well. Of course, that's vital to the team. So I understand Commissioner Hall's concerns. Our lawsuit is certainly yours to control, but that's a little bit about how we've arrived at the MOU and why it's important in the overall process to the defendants, and quite frankly to the counties, to have some certainty over what they'll receive and what they can spend it on. I talked a little bit there. I'm not sure I answered the question. I'm happy to answer any direct questions.
Any other questions? Yes.
Mr. County Attorney, does signing this MOA, back us out of the other litigation that we've already undertaken?
No, if you'll remember, that litigation involved a laundry list of defendants. The current resolution the current settlement that we're talking about is really just a subset of the defendants who have essentially reached some agreement in principle with, many of the plaintiffs, right? So the litigation as to other defendants will continue. So that lawsuit, if you will, until it's finally resolved at the end, will continue. But the settlement we're talking about is just to a subset of the defendants. And so the MOU is sort of the internal document, if you will, among the similarly situated plaintiffs in North Carolina saying, okay, if we settle this to these defendants, this is how we agree that the flow of funds will come down and how we'll distribute it so that those settling defendants will have some certainty around that process. So it won't resolve the case for all time, but it will resolve it to a subset of the defendants.
I think there are 4 of the defendants.
I just wanted to point out the fact that I did a little bit of math, and I think I did it right. And if I looked at the numbers in here, what this works out to for Caswell County is $7,200 a year for 18 years. Now, do we think that's fair?
No, the last time I did the math, it was over $1 million total settlement, a total settlement of over $1 million. I don't remember the exact number. I was thinking 12, 1.2 million or 1.4 million, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Well, all I know is 750 million divided by 18 years. And then you multiply it by that percentage, which is ridiculous in the parts per thousand. The math worked out to $7,200 per year for 18 years.
Yeah, and I have not crunched the actual totals, but of course what you're looking at there on the MOU is a sort of a percentage, right? And that was derived, Brian, by a number of factors, right? Population being one, and perhaps some negative, documented negative outcomes too. But what I would suggest is perhaps your litigation counsel, county manager, when the actual settlement is proposed, will certainly have more definite numbers to share with the board before it, ultimately signs off on any settlement or dismissal of claims.
We have till January
2nd, 2020.
January 2nd, so we can hold off this and get further questions answered.
Chairman, what's the final total on the legal fees for the attorneys that handle that for us? At one point, they were talking about more compensation than what was coming down the line. How did all that work out? Is it a standard sum or what was?
Well, my understanding, and I'll ask the attorney, maybe Rick, your county manager, is that when the national suit was settled with these companies, they signed an agreement that we would not have to pay any local, because we signed with a national company. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. We didn't sign the local attorneys. The national companies are responsible for paying the local attorneys. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. So do you feel like we need some more information before? I mean, this is it. This is what you're going to get.
It was not my intention to delay us moving forward.
Right.
I should have asked my question the way Commissioner Oshback did, but I won't thank you fast enough. So, one final question. You made comments to state you got that money.
In the settlement, the state is going to get whatever this pile of money, and then 15%.
Okay.
I believe is correct. Out of the total settlement.
Okay, so my question is, will the state get theirs over 18 years? Or did they negotiate something different?
As far as I know, the state's gonna get the same payment schedule we are, is that correct? Do you know? I've not seen anything different, but
I'm not 100% sure about that detail. I don't know the answer to that.
I have not seen anything that I've read on this where the state was gonna get their money different than the county, but we can research that, but I'm not 100% sure of that. I've just not seen anything that said that.
I just don't want them sitting on our money, that's all. But I'm ready to move forward.
All right, so what's the pleasure of the board?
Well, we have two suits here, basically. We got our own, we signed up with a smaller group of counties.
No, we signed with a national firm. The national firm hired the local attorneys.
We still have a pending suit in addition to this settlement.
Yes.
So we have two pending suits.
Could be more than that. I don't have the other defendants there are.
I hope maybe my math is wrong, but I don't think so. Because if you take 750 million divided by 18, you're down pretty quick, and then you divide it on the 100 counties. And then you divide that by population, we're not getting much. If whatever we get from this is in addition to whatever else is in the other lawsuit, that's okay. But it sounds to me as though what's in this is a subset of a national set of suits. I don't believe we're capable of making an intelligent decision on this tonight. We need a lot more analysis and a lot more understanding of what's at stake here.
Regardless, just so you know, this suit was settled with these companies. There are 4 of them, I believe, that they settled with. That's where this money we're getting from this suit is coming from. Any other litigation that occurs, any money that comes from any other companies, we're going to get part of that money as well. But this is just for those 4 companies.
Those 4 companies are not included in the suit we already have out.
Yes, but there is a longer list of defendants in that. These have chosen to settle. But I understand what you're saying.
By signing this, we walk away from any settlement with those companies.
Not with any other companies.
With those 4.
With those 4, yes.
Well, I'm not happy with that.
Well, that's gonna happen regardless, because the settlement is taking place. I think, but anyway, let's do this.
If we don't sign it, we're not part of it.
Well,
The
you just don't, the only thing that changes is you don't get the money.
The state cannot sign away our rights.
The only thing that changes is you don't get the money. But let's do this. Let's put this on the next agenda. Let's look at this and look through this memorandum. And you have something.
If we were to pull out of this agreement and not be bound by it, then we would be on the hook for fighting to life as a small county. As it is now, you've got $1.2 million over 18 years is a sure thing. I'd a whole lot rather go with that than I had to look at the monstrous legal bills of going up against those companies on their own.
Okay, so again, I'll ask the question, pleasure of the board. Do you want to make a motion, or do we want to put it back on next agenda?
Commissioner,
I'm fine to go on with this call. We need to make a decision. I'll make a motion that we accept the terms of this settlement with these 4 companies.
All right, we have a motion. All needs a second. And we have a second. Mr. Miller, did you have something you want to inject in this?
Yeah, I just say, I went through the math and it's $1,037,521.43 that we would receive over 18 years.
Divide that by 18.
$57,640 a year.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other further discussion, questions? Roll call voting, Commissioner Carter?
Aye.
Commissioner Dickinson? Commissioner Hall? Commissioner Jeffries? Commissioner McVeigh? Commissioner Ostriker?
No.
Commissioner Owen? Thank you, gentlemen. Next is mandatory vaccinations. Commissioner Hall?
Yeah. We had, a lot of discussion, probably about a month ago. And at a meeting, probably 3 weeks ago, that was referenced, I was on Zoom. I could see and hear everything that was said, but nobody could hear me. And I was trying to second the motion when it came up, but I wasn't heard. I guess a technical difficulty. And so that's why no action was taken, up or down, in my opinion. So I wanted to put it back so that we can take action and move on.
Okay. Bear with me. Pleasure of the board.
I move that we require mandatory vaccinations for all employees that work for Capital County.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion? If not, roll call voting, gentlemen. Commissioner Carter?
No.
Commissioner Dickinson?
No.
Commissioner Hall? Commissioner Jeffries? Commissioner McVeigh? No. Commissioner Ostriker?
No.
Commissioner Owen? No. Motion carries. Next is the ethics policy, Commissioner Hall.
At the last meeting, Mr. Chairman, you made a comment about some things that bothered you as it related to the actions of the family. And I had the same feelings, but once you made a comment, so no need to make, echoing that. But one of the things I did is I went home and I looked at our ethics policy. And we have two. We have an ethics policy for commissioners. We have an ethics policy for employees. Nowhere did I see that either one of those policies applied to boards and commissions that we appoint people to. So what I'm suggesting is that we get the county manager and his staff to combine those two policies into one and include in the policy that the policy is applicable to commissioners, to employees, and to any appointees to boards and commissioners that this board appoints.
Okay. Questions, gentlemen, discussion?
That's a whole lot of information condensed, and without seeing it, I have no idea what my feelings would be on it until I can actually read what is put together if we're going down there.
Well, I assume that's what he wants, is to have the staff put together something, bring it back before the board would be approved.
Yes, but I would assume that all the commissioners That's this was ethics policy. And it is the largest, the employee's ethics policy is on about 8 to 10 lines.
Right, yeah.
Commissioner Hall, in the agenda packet, there were 3 pages on this, page 303, 304, and 305. They appear to be out of order to me, but,
They were.
sorry?
They are out of order. The code of ethics for the commissioners should be 2 pages, and then the employee code of ethics is only 1.
And what you're proposing is that they be combined?
Yeah, the employees is looked off. I mean, just put them all into one, and
And literally just, I mean, just as written.
well, not necessarily, I would think that the county manager and his staff, there might be some redundancy. I didn't go back to check for that. So if there's some redundancy, take it out.
I'm with you 100%.
Any other questions or comments?
So, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I don't know if I said it all, the other thing is, once we get them combined, that we indicate that they are applicable to all, boards and commissions where we appoint, someone to, at least our appointee. Then the final thing I think we need to do is to indicate how people, all of us, will be held accountable if accused of violating the ethics policy. I would assume that for employees and boards and commissions, that it could come to this board. But for this commission, I don't think it might be appropriate for this board to adjudicate ethics issues for other board members. So when we ask staff to do this, ask them to come up with some recommendations for how accusations of ethics violations to board members could be adjudicated.
Indeed.
Well, my thing is, I haven't read it for some time, I'd like to read it, then don't let it go before we take it back.
I didn't hear it.
He just said it's not read, the agenda, has not read it tonight. And I think what he is asking is that the staff puts it together, then it will come back before us, before there would be any vote on it. Yes. So I think that will cover that issue, be in the agenda packet. Commissioner Davis?
Well, gentlemen, no better time than present. I think if we're gonna look at ethics for boards and we're looking at passing rules and agendas for everyone to follow, I think this board needs to have a frank discussion about some kind of policies put in place that commissioners cannot come before this board requesting money for grants anymore. Because it makes us all look bad when we sit here and dole out grant money to sitting commissioners. And I do not think that should be taking place. I really think that all that money that was doled out to commissioners, as well as what we have left in that grant process, we ought to take all that money and cut it up amongst the fire departments in this county and give them all equal share of it. That way all the citizens in the county would benefit greatly from it. So if we want to talk about doing the right thing, let's talk about doing that.
Well, the only thing I say, that money did not go to commission.
It went to groups that they were members of, and as far as the county is concerned, it looks very bad on us.
Any other?
I agree with Mr. Nicholson on that. I would be able to split the money like this now.
Surely it would.
Well, I think then you gotta go a little deeper because there's also city member of this board that gets paid by the county to do water inspection, so.
Getting paid for a service is a different thing from getting grants from a fund that was set up to benefit the whole county. The whole thing why people are so outraged is we got $100,000 that was designed to cover the needs of all the people in this county. And $32,000 of that money was allocated in the form of grants to entities that commissioners on this board are tied to. So 1/3 of the money was taken out of the pot. At least we can do, if they don't want to give that back, is take what we have left and divide it up amongst fire departments. That way you are actually distributing that money out and everybody in this county will be a beneficiary of it. That's the fair way to do it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have to say this. Number one, that's not an ethics issue. These were federal dollars allocated to mitigate some COVID, the pandemic. Everybody had the opportunity, and still have, I suppose, to apply. And to give it to somebody, give it to someone based on their personal preference, to me, that's an ethics problem.
Everyone in this county is not a commissioner, Mr. Hall, and for this board to decide to give money to other commissioners' charities, that is an ethics breach, in my opinion. It may be legal, but it certainly seems unethical to a lot of people in this county.
And you're okay, and that's why I brought this up about the policy. If there's, once we get this handled, and we find a way to adjudicate it, anybody want to bring up an ethics issue against any commissioner will be able to do so.
All right, very well. Let's get this issue that Commissioner Hall let's get that done. And then the issue you want to talk about, maybe a further discussion when this comes out.
Well, I see it as one and the same. If we're talking about ethics and we're talking about rules and upgraded procedures, I think that the frank discussion about how we handle giving out money to any one commissioner that has a link to a charity that comes in here, we need to be talking about that. We need to be setting some kind of rules and not just saying majority rules on it in the future and saying, well, it's legal, but is it applicable? Do we want to go down this road again and stir up a hornet's nest when we can take the opportunity while we're talking about ethics and put safeguards in place where we keep that from happening again?
That's a question.
I'm hearing a lot of talk out in the county about what Mr. Dixon's talking about. So I had several approach me in last week about getting money for baseball, pay for baseball, basketball.
That's right.
Most of the members of this board are here out of a sense of social duty to the county. Many of the members of this board sit on other boards out of a sense of duty to the county and to the activities that that organization performs for the county. I'm not aware of any commission that's on any of those boards that would receive financial compensation from those other boards as a result of receiving money from COVID payments from the federal government. That is a key component of conflict of interest and ethics, is receiving direct financial compensation. I think charging people with that is an egregious statement and it's wrong.
Well, for clarification, we will know a lot more about it in the future, because I've contacted the state and asked them to look into it. And I'm waiting on another attorney to call me back, and we'll have a legal rendering at the state level. So we'll know more about it soon.
All right. So, I want to proceed with the recommendation of Commissioner Hall on the ethical policy, combining and including the, boards and commissions. Again, that will come back before us, before the vote, before there was never vote.
Do I need to make that a form of a motion?
Yes, sir, you can.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that the Commissioner's ethics policy, the employee's ethics policy, be combined, we can ask staff to do that, and we include in the policy that all boards and commissions that we appoint people to, those persons are subject to the ethics policy.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
Sir.
Okay, we have a second. We need to get this thing on. Any other questions, comments? Okay, we have a motion, second, roll call voting on this. Commissioner Carter? Commissioner Davidson? Commissioner Hall? Commissioner Jeffries? Commissioner Day? Commissioner Ostrowski? Commissioner Holman? County manager updates. Castle County Redistricting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do want to give the board a quick update on redistricting. After our last special meeting relating to the redrawing of Castle's electoral districts, a lot of time was spent trying to form the districts in a manner that met all the criteria set forth by the board. Unfortunately, as of this time, we haven't achieved anything that works. After seeing the struggle to redraw the districts, I went back to the data to see why this was so difficult. The data from the decennial census showed several reasons why we're experiencing problems with keeping the districts compact, having a commissioner in each district, and maintaining 2 minority-majority districts. The data shows that of the 961 people lost over the past 10 years, 523 of those people were minorities. That means that 54% of those that left Castle were minorities, and our population only consists of 38.3% minorities. In the existing minority district, District 3 lost a total of 115 people overall, but lost 273 people with minority status. This means that 273 minorities left, and 158 people in the majority moved into that district. In District 4, the district lost a total of 381 people. 360 of those that were lost were minorities. District 1 and 2 both lost population, 370 and 140 people respectively, but gained in minority population by 39 and 45 respectively. District 5 gained 5 people in population and gained 26 people with minority status. This means that the minority population is lower than it was 10 years ago, definitely, but it also means that the minorities are more evenly dispersed throughout all communities. There are still communities that have very heavily weighted census tracts for both minorities and non-minorities. This makes it somewhat easier when trying to form a minority district, but those districts are not nearly as compact as in years past. So here's the point I'm trying to make. We're still working on the districts. We hope to have something final by Friday. Maybe not final, but something to present to the board. I would recommend that the board hold a special meeting this Friday to review what we have, or possibly even Thursday, whichever the board prefers. But do so with tempered expectations and know that all of the priorities that you have may just not be possible.
I do not have my calendar with me because it's on my phone and my phone is not working, but, Thursday or Friday suit everyone. No, neither one.
Well, I'm tied up first half of the day on Thursday and the first half of the day on Friday. Maybe a little longer than I anticipated.
Yeah. Friday afternoon would not work for me. I've got to be out of the county.
Thursday is good to me.
Thursday's good with me.
Thursday. Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening.
I can do Thursday evening.
All right. What? 6:36. What?
3 o'clock? Just throwing that out there.
He can't do it that early.
What's the earliest you can do it, Commissioner? Make that.
I'll try to do 3:30, 3 o'clock, something like that. I can try. May not be here right when you start, but I'll try.
3 o'clock then? No, it doesn't, okay.
I can make about 4, that'd be as early as I can get.
Depending on what, about 5 o'clock, everybody be here.
5 o'clock. Let's just do 5. I give everybody. That's Thursday. Anything else on that? Thursday, 5 o'clock.
So we don't need to go by this right here. This is not what you've been working.
That's what I'm waiting.
This is not what you've been working on here. What we got here on in the packet.
So, yes, we've been working on redistricting, but these are not new. We do not have new maps for the board at this time. We hope to have those by Friday. We believe we will. So if we have those by Friday, we can publish a public hearing for the commissioners' meeting on November 1st.
All right, and let's see if we can have that at the library again.
Sure, the special meeting?
Yes, yes. So as of right now, it'd be at the library unless we let you know otherwise. All right, Commissioner comments? Anyone?
I think I don't say nothing about it.
That meeting Thursday is at the library.
Yes, that's what. 5 o'clock. At 5 o'clock. Any announcements or upcoming events? If not,
Ryan, did you want to form a Cole retirement?
I've spoken to each board member. I've spoken to each board member.
So the whole board.
I've spoken to each board member individually, yes.
Oh, you hear these nights.
I need a motion to adjourn, gentlemen.
So moved.
We have a motion to adjourn, need a second.
Second.
Roll call voting. Commissioner Carter. Mr. Davidson. Mr. Hall. Mr. Jeffries. Commissioner Blaine. Mr. Striker. Owen. We now set adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.